Admiral Tamin floated in the command center of his dying flagship, watching the stars blur past through cracked viewports. Just 3 hours ago, he commanded over 2,000 warships. Now barely 50 remained, their hulls scarred and engines sputtering as they fled deeper into empty space. The Vorthak had come like a plague of metal locusts. Wave after wave of their biomechanical ships had swept through the outer colonies, consuming everything in their path. Tamin had seen entire planets stripped bare in days, their populations absorbed into the swarm's collective consciousness. His communication officer, a young centauri named Velkan, looked up from his station with haunted eyes. "Sir, we're receiving the final transmissions from the Zephyrian core worlds. They're gone." Tamin closed his eyes. The Zephyrians had been masters of technology for over 10,000 years. Their cities floated among the clouds of gas giants, powered by fusion cores that could light up whole solar systems. If they had fallen, what hope remained for anyone? "What about the Dracony?" he asked, though he already knew the answer. "The warrior clans made their last stand at Krex Prime yesterday," Velkan whispered. 3 million of their finest fighters. The Vorthak overwhelmed them in 6 hours. The proud Dracony, who had never lost a war in their entire history, crushed like insects. Tamin remembered watching their ceremonial battles as a young officer, amazed by their strength and honor. Now their great war songs would never be sung again. And the ethereals, silent. Their psychic networks went dark 2 days ago. The mystical ethereals could speak mind to mind across vast distances, their thoughts flowing like rivers of light. Through space, they had guided the galaxy's spiritual growth for millennia. If their voices had been silenced, the very soul of galactic civilization had died with them. Tamin's hands shook as he reached for the emergency beacon controls. This ancient device could broadcast across the entire galaxy, but it would also reveal their location to any Vorthak forces nearby. Still, someone had to know what happened here. Someone had to remember. "All ships prepare for emergency jump," he commanded. "We'll broadcast from the edge of known space, then scatter. May the stars guide us home." The beacon activated with a deep hum that vibrated through the ship's hull. Tamin spoke into the transmitter, his voice carrying the weight of a dying civilization. "This is Admiral Tamin of the Centauri Defense Fleet. The Galactic Coalition has fallen. The Vorthak Empire has consumed our worlds. We are the last free voices in this sector. If anyone receives this message, know that we fought with honor. Remember us." As his ships jumped to hyperspace, the signal raced ahead of them at impossible speeds, carrying news of the galaxy's darkest hour to whoever might be listening in the void. Far away, on a small blue planet orbiting an ordinary yellow star, Captain Minho sat in Earth's deepest military bunker. Banks of computers surrounded him, their screens filled with alien languages and star charts. For 30 years he had monitored these signals, learning about civilizations that didn't even know humans existed. When Tamin's desperate message reached Earth, Minho's heart raced. The great galactic powers had finally met their match. But as he studied the transmission data, a smile crossed his face. Humanity had been preparing for this moment longer than anyone knew. General Hie Jin walked into the massive underground chamber buried 3 miles beneath the Colorado Mountains. The room buzzed with quiet energy as Earth's most brilliant minds gathered around holographic displays showing the entire galaxy. Star systems glowed like jewels in the darkness, but many were now flickering red, marking worlds consumed by the Vorthak swarm. 37 years ago, we detected our first alien transmission, Hijin began, her voice echoing in the vast space. A simple trade dispute between 2 mining colonies. While those aliens argued over asteroid rights, we realized we weren't alone in the universe. The assembled officers and scientists leaned forward. Most had spent their entire careers in this secret facility, watching civilizations rise and fall, while Earth remained hidden in the shadows. The Zephyrians thought we were too primitive to notice their scout ships passing through our solar system, Hyjin continued. The Draconi dismissed our radio signals as natural cosmic noise. The ethereals never bothered to scan our minds because they assumed we had nothing worth reading. Commander So Young stepped forward, activating the central display. Thousands, of files materialized in the air, each one containing intercepted alien communications, battle reports, and strategic analyses. While they ignored us, we watched everything. Every war, every peace treaty, every technological breakthrough. We learned their languages, studied their cultures, and most importantly, we analyzed their military tactics. The hologram zoomed in on recent battle footage captured by long-range sensors. Massive alien fleets engaged Vorthak swarms in brutal conflicts that stretched across multiple star systems. The aliens fought with honor and tradition, following ancient codes of warfare that made their movements predictable. Look at this engagement near the Rigel system. So Young pointed to a particular battle. The Dracony warriors charged straight at the enemy, just like their ancestors did thousands of years ago. Brave but foolish, the Vorthak adapted to their tactics within hours. Dr. Kyung-soo, Earth's leading xenobiologist, stood up from his workstation. We've identified 17 critical weaknesses in Vorthak battle formations. Their hive mind structure makes them incredibly coordinated, but it also creates predictable patterns. They can't improvise like individual minds can. The aliens see the Vorthak as an unstoppable force of nature, added Colonel J1 from the Tactical Division. But we see them as a problem to be solved. Every organism has vulnerabilities if you know where to look. General Hyejin nodded, walking between the floating displays of alien battles. The galactic civilizations fight like they always have, using the same strategies that worked against each other. But the Vorthak aren't like other enemies. They learn, they adapt, they grow stronger with each victory. She paused at a display showing Earth's hidden military installations scattered across the solar system. Weapons that had never been tested in real combat, technologies developed in complete secrecy, and strategies designed specifically to counter an enemy the galaxy thought was invincible. For 3 decades, we've been the galaxy's silent students, Hyejin announced. We've learned from every alien mistake, every failed strategy, every tactical blunder. While they saw us as primitive cave dwellers, we were becoming something they never expected. Commander So Young activated another set of files, showing detailed analysis of human military capabilities. Our ships don't follow their rules of engagement. Our weapons don't work like theirs, our minds don't think like theirs. What they see as dishonorable, we see as effective. The room fell silent as the implications sank in. Earth had been preparing for this war longer than any other. Species had been fighting it. The galaxy burns, General Hyejin concluded, but we know exactly how to extinguish the fire. Admiral Tae-min was staring at his tactical display when the impossible happened. Space itself seemed to ripple and bend as dozens of sleek, angular ships suddenly appeared at the edge of his sensor range. His communications officer nearly fell from his chair as alarms began blaring throughout the bridge. "Unknown vessels decloaking off our starboard bow," Velkan shouted, his voice cracking with panic. "Energy signatures, unlike anything in our databases." Taemin's heart sank. After fleeing the Vorthak for 3 days straight, had they finally been cornered? These ships didn't match any known Vorthak design, but in his experience, the swarm constantly evolved new forms. His remaining 47 vessels were barely spaceworthy, their weapons depleted and shields failing. "All ships prepare for combat," he ordered, though he knew it was hopeless. His fleet couldn't fight a determined patrol of space pirates, let alone mysterious warships that could appear from nowhere. Then something extraordinary happened. A calm, steady voice spoke across the communication channels in perfect galactic standard, the universal language of trade and diplomacy that took most species decades to master. "Admiral Taemin of the Centauri Defense Fleet. This is Captain John Seo of the Terran Expeditionary Force. Please do not be alarmed. We are here to help." The bridge fell silent. Taemin had never heard of any species called Terran, and the name Jun Seo didn't match any known alien naming conventions. The voice itself was strange, too, carrying emotional undertones that most galactic species had evolved beyond. "Who are you?" Taemin asked, his tactical officer keeping weapons trained on the mysterious fleet. "What do you want with us?" "We received your distress beacon 3 days ago," Captain Jun Seo replied. "Actually, we've been monitoring your communications for much longer than that. We know about the Vorthak invasion, the fall of the Coalition, and your current situation." Taemin's blood ran cold. If these aliens had been watching the galaxy's communications, they knew how desperate the situation had become. Were they scavengers, come to pick through the ruins of civilization? Pirates, looking to enslave the survivors? We understand your suspicion, Junseo continued, somehow reading the mood perfectly. You've never heard of humans before because we chose to remain hidden. Your species classified our world as a primitive backwater inhabited by barely intelligent apes. We decided it was safer to let you think that. The alien admiral blinked in confusion. Humans. He vaguely remembered survey reports from the Outer Rim mentioning a species that had barely discovered fire. How could such primitives have developed interstellar travel, let alone cloaking technology that surpassed even Zephyrian science? If reading his thoughts, the human ships began moving in perfect formation, executing maneuvers that should have been impossible. They flowed like water around Taimin's scattered fleet, maintaining precise distances while scanning for damage and casualties. No computer could calculate such complex movements, yet these ships moved as if guided by a single brilliant mind. Impossible, whispered Velkan. Look at their formation patterns. They're compensating for our damaged navigation systems, creating a protective envelope while maintaining optimal firing solutions on all approach vectors. You mentioned receiving our beacon 3 days ago, Taimin said slowly. But you also said you've been monitoring us for longer. How long? 37 years, Captain Junseo answered simply. Ever since your people first started broadcasting into space, we've been learning your languages, studying your cultures and watching your wars. When the Vorthak began their expansion, we knew this day would come. The implications hit Taimin like a physical blow. While the galaxy's greatest civilizations had dismissed humans as irrelevant primitives, these mysterious beings had been quietly preparing for the war that destroyed everyone else. They had watched the coalition's strategies fail, learned from every defeat, and developed countermeasures while remaining completely invisible. Why reveal yourselves now? Taimin asked. Because the galaxy is dying, Junseo replied, and we're the only ones who know how to save it. Commander Daun's 12 ships dropped out of hyperspace directly above Kepler Prime, where 300 Vorthak vessels swarmed around the dying planet like metallic wasps. The colony below had been under siege for 2 weeks, its shields failing, and population centers burning under constant bombardment. Admiral Taimin watched from his command ship, positioned safely at the edge of the system. Commander, you're outnumbered 25-1, he transmitted urgently. No force that small can engage a full Vorthak battle group. You should retreat while you still can. Dayun's response came back calm and confident. Admiral, you're thinking like them. Watch and learn how humans fight. Instead of forming the traditional battle lines that every galactic species had used for millennia, the human ships scattered in seemingly random directions. Some dove toward the planet's surface, others climbed high above the orbital plane, and a few actually flew straight into the heart of the Vorthak formation. What are they doing? Velkan asked in confusion. They've broken every rule of space combat. No coordination, no formation integrity, no concentrated firepower. But Taimin was beginning to see the pattern. Each human ship moved independently, yet they were somehow working together in ways that defied military logic. While the Vorthak swarm tried to surround and destroy them using standard tactics, the humans kept slipping away like smoke. Lieutenant Wu Jin's ship, the smallest in the human fleet, suddenly accelerated toward the largest Vorthak vessel. This is crazy, Taimin muttered. That's a command ship, it's 50 times his size. Instead of attacking with weapons, Wu Jin's ship began broadcasting something on the same frequency the Vorthak used to communicate with each other. Within seconds, the entire enemy formation began to waver and lose cohesion. What did you do? Dayun asked Wu Jin over the comm. I recorded their command signals from the last battle and played them back with slight modifications, Wu Jin explained casually. Their hive mind can't tell the difference between real orders and fake ones. Right now, half their ships think they're supposed to retreat, and the other half think they're supposed to advance. The Vorthak fleet, which had moved like a single organism just moments before, suddenly began attacking itself. Ships collided as confused pilots received contradictory orders. Some vessels tried to flee while others continued the assault, creating chaos in their ranks. "Impossible," Taimin whispered. "The Vorthak hive mind has never been compromised before." "That's because nobody ever tried to hack it," Dayun replied. "Your people always fought them with honor, following the rules of warfare. We fight to win." Another human ship, piloted by Captain Insu, suddenly appeared behind the Vorthak command vessel. Instead of using conventional weapons, his ship fired something that looked like metallic spores. These tiny projectiles attached themselves to the enemy hull and began drilling through the armor. "Nanobots," Darwin explained. "They'll disable their primary systems from the inside, much more effective than trying to punch through their shields." With brute force, the Vorthak command ship began spinning out of control as its navigation systems failed. Without their central coordinator, the remaining enemy vessels lost all tactical coordination. They fired randomly, often hitting their own allies in the confusion. Lieutenant Haywon's ship had been darting between the planet's moons, seemingly running from the fight. But suddenly, she emerged from behind Kepler Prime's largest moon, her weapons fully charged and aimed at the Vorthak ships that had been bombarding the colony. "Flanking maneuver," she announced. They were so focused on the obvious threats they forgot to watch their backs. In less than an hour, the 300 Vorthak vessels had been reduced to scattered debris. The humans had achieved total victory, without losing a single ship, using tactics that seemed impossible to traditional military minds. "How?" Taimin asked, still staring at his tactical display in disbelief. "We don't fight like warriors," Dayun explained. "We fight like predators. We use their strengths against them, exploit their weaknesses, and never give them a fair fight. Honor is for peacetime, Admiral. In war, victory is the only thing that matters." Dr. Harnul wiped sweat from her forehead as she bent over the dissection table in the cramped mobile laboratory. The captured Vorthak specimen lay before her, its biomechanical body partially disassembled, to reveal the strange fusion of organic tissue and metallic components that made up these terrifying creatures. "Pass me the neural scanner," she called. To her assistant, Dr. Sungmin, who was analyzing tissue samples at the adjacent workstation. The laboratory ship rocked slightly as it maintained orbit around the recently liberated world of Proxima 7, where human forces had just achieved their third consecutive victory against the swarm. For weeks, Harnul's team had been collecting Vorthak specimens from battlefields across the galaxy. Each creature they studied revealed new secrets about how the hive mind operated. Unlike the alien scientists who had tried to understand the Vorthak through traditional biology, the humans approached them like a complex machine that needed to be reverse-engineered. "Look at this," Harnul said, pointing to a cluster of crystalline structures embedded in the creature's brain tissue. "These aren't natural neural pathways. They're artificial communication nodes, grown inside their skulls like living radio transmitters." Dr. Sungmin leaned closer, adjusting his microscope. "The crystals resonate at very specific frequencies. That's how they maintain their hive-mind connection across vast distances. But notice the power source." He indicated a small organ that pulsed with faint electrical energy. "It's incredibly delicate. Any disruption to the electromagnetic field would cause catastrophic failure." Hanul's eyes lit up with excitement, "which means if we can generate the right frequency, we can sever their connection to the hive mind entirely. They'd become confused, disoriented, unable to coordinate their attacks." She immediately activated her communication link to General Hai Jin, who was coordinating the human war effort from the flagship stationed 3 systems away. "General, we've found their weakness. The Vorthak neural networks operate on a narrow band of electromagnetic frequencies. Our quantum generators can produce the exact disruption patterns needed to shut them down." Within hours, human ships across the galaxy were being retrofitted with the new electromagnetic pulse weapons. Captain Minho led the first test of the technology at the siege of Altair 4, where 50,000 Vorthak ground forces had been systematically consuming the planet's population for 3 months. The moment Minho's ships activated their EM generators, the effect was immediate and devastating. Vorthak soldiers on the planet's surface suddenly stopped their coordinated advance and began wandering aimlessly. Some attacked their own allies, Others simply stood motionless as their connection to the hive mind was severed. "It's working," Captain Minho reported, watching through his ship's cameras as the formerly unstoppable Vorthak army collapsed into chaos. "They're fighting each other now. Without their shared consciousness, they can't tell friend from foe." The IIB Human Ground Forces, led by Colonel Dong-hyun, quickly moved in to support the surviving colonists. Instead of the brutal house-to-house fighting that had characterized previous liberation attempts, they found confused individual Vorthak that could be easily captured or eliminated. News of the victory spread rapidly through the underground resistance networks that had formed on occupied worlds. Within days, similar attacks were launched at 17 different systems simultaneously. Each time, the results were the same. The seemingly invincible Vorthak swarms crumbled the moment their hive mind connection was disrupted. Major Yeon Woo coordinated the liberation of the mining colonies in the Vega system, where her small force of 30 ships defeated over 2,000 Vorthak vessels using nothing but electromagnetic weapons. "They're like individual insects without their queen," she reported, dangerous alone, but completely unable to work together. As planet after planet threw off Vorthak occupation, something unprecedented began happening across the galaxy. Species that had accepted defeat and were preparing for extinction suddenly found hope again. The unstoppable swarm that had consumed entire civilizations was retreating, its forces scattered and demoralized. Dr. Hanul watched the liberation report streaming in from across known space, a satisfied smile on her face. 37 years of careful observation finally paid off, she told her research team. While the galaxy's greatest minds saw the Vorthak as an unstoppable force of nature, we saw them as a problem with a solution. The swarm was indeed learning to fear humanity's touch. Colonel Seung-ho stood in the massive command center aboard the human flagship New Seoul, surrounded by holographic displays showing the entire galaxy. But what made this moment historic wasn't the technology, it was the beings gathered around him. For the first time in galactic history, every surviving species was working together under a single command structure. Admiral Taemin represented the Centauri survivors, his once proud fleet now rebuilt with human technology and fighting spirit. Beside him stood War Chief Krastok of the Draconai, his massive frame covered in battle scars from 100 conflicts. The ethereal being known as Whisper of Stars floated nearby, its translucent form shimmering as it communicated through telepathic waves. 6 months ago we were bitter enemies, Taemin observed, watching Draconi engineers work alongside Zephyrian technicians. "My people fought 3 wars against the Draconi in the last century, and my clans considered your species weak and unworthy," growled Krastok. "Yet here we stand united by these remarkable humans who appeared from nowhere." Colonel Seung-ho smiled as he reviewed the production reports flowing in from across the galaxy. The Zephyrians had converted their surviving cloud cities into massive weapons factories, churning out human-designed ships at incredible speed. Their mastery of advanced manufacturing meant they could build in weeks what used to take years. The Draconi contributed something equally valuable: raw fighting power and fearless pilots. Their warrior culture, which had made them excellent individual fighters, now served the Alliance perfectly when guided by human strategy. Each Draconi ship crew was worth 10 ordinary pilots in combat. The Ethereals provided intelligence gathering beyond anything humans had imagined possible. Their psychic networks could detect Vorthak movements across multiple star systems simultaneously, giving the Alliance perfect information about enemy positions and intentions. "The beauty isn't just that we're working together," Seung-ho explained to his staff. "It's that humans can see how to combine these different strengths in ways none of them ever imagined." Major Yoon-young approached the command table, her uniform bearing insignia from 4 different species. As the Alliance's first joint command officer, she'd spent months learning to work with alien mindsets and military traditions. "Colonel, all task forces report ready for Operation Galactic Dawn," she announced. 12 systems, 60,000 ships, 200 million ground troops, all coordinated for simultaneous attack. The scale was staggering. Never before had so many forces moved in perfect coordination across such vast distances. The key was human communication technology, which allowed real-time coordination across light years of space. War Chief Krastok studied the battle plans with professional interest. In the old days, my people would charge straight at the enemy and trust in our strength. Your people have taught us patience and cunning. We strike where they are weak, not where they are strong. Admiral Tamin nodded agreement. The Centauri always fought defensive battles protecting our trade routes and colonies. But humans think differently. They turn defense into offense, weakness into strength. Whisper of Stars communicated through gentle telepathic touches to nearby humans. Its thoughts translated roughly as amazement at how human minds could process multiple complex strategies simultaneously while maintaining emotional connections to individual soldiers. Launch the offensive, Colonel Sung Ho ordered. Across 12 star systems, the coordinated attack began with mechanical precision. Zephyrian-built ships carrying human weapons and Draconi crews struck Vorthak supply lines. Ethereal scouts guided human special forces to critical targets. Centauri Engineering Corps supported ground invasions with their expertise in defensive structures. But what made it truly devastating was the human element. Unpredictability. While the Vorthak had learned to counter individual species tactics, they couldn't adapt to the constantly shifting combinations of alien strengths under human coordination. Major Yoon Young monitored the battles from her mobile command ship, switching between different theaters of war as needed. Vorthon 7 secured, she reported. Draconi forces are pursuing retreating Vorthak toward the Kepler system, where our Zephyrian fleet is waiting in ambush. For 3 straight days, victory reports poured in from across the galaxy. The Vorthak, who had grown accustomed to fighting demoralized scattered enemies, found themselves facing a coordinated war machine that seemed to anticipate their every move. They're retreating, War Chief Krastok announced with savage satisfaction. For the first time since this war began, the swarm is running from us. Colonel Sung Ho allowed himself a moment of satisfaction as he watched the tactical displays update. Red zones marking Vorthak control were turning blue as Allied forces advanced. The galaxy's defenders were finally moving forward instead of desperately holding the line. The tide of war had turned. Captain Jun Seo's strike force materialized in the Vorthak breeding system of Zerion 9, where massive bioships the size of moons floated in orbit around a dying star. These weren't warships but nurseries, each one containing millions of developing Vorthak larvae that would soon mature into the next wave of the swarm. Visual confirmation on 17 breeding vessels, reported his tactical officer, Lieutenant Boram. Each one is producing approximately 50,000 new Vorthak every standard day. Jun Seo studied the grotesque sight through his ship's cameras. The breeding vessels pulsed with organic life, their hulls covered in translucent sacs that glowed with bioluminescent energy. Inside each sac he could see the shadowy forms of developing creatures, waiting to emerge and join the galaxy's destruction. In the old wars, everyone focused on fighting the adult Vorthak, Jun Seo explained to his mixed crew of human and alien officers. They never thought to strike at the nurseries, cut off their reproduction, and eventually the swarm dies of attrition. 3,000 light-years away, Commander Da Yun's fleet dropped out of hyperspace near the heavily fortified command world of Vorthak Prime 7. Unlike the breeding worlds, this planet served as a neural hub for coordinating swarm activities across an entire galactic sector. Massive relay towers stretched from the planet's surface into space, broadcasting control signals to billions of individual Vorthak across dozens of star systems. Reading massive psionic activity from the surface, her science officer reported. These aren't individual Vorthak minds. It's like a giant brain using the whole planet as neural tissue. Da Yun activated her quantum communicator, establishing an instantaneous link with Jun Seo's fleet, despite the impossible distance between them. This technology, developed by human scientists working with ethereal psychic principles, allowed perfect coordination across the galaxy. Jun Seo, are you in position? She asked. Ready for synchronized strike, came his immediate reply. Breeding. Worlds targeted. Quantum torpedoes armed. On my mark, then. 3, 2, 1, execute. Both fleets attacked simultaneously. Jun Seo's ships unleashed torrents of antimatter missiles that tore through the breeding vessels' organic hulls. Each explosion sterilized millions of developing Vorthak before they could reach maturity. The nursery ships, never designed for combat, had no defenses against the coordinated assault. At the same moment, Da Yun's forces bombarded the command world's relay towers with concentrated electromagnetic pulses. The massive structures, which had been broadcasting control signals for centuries, simply shut down as their organic components overloaded and died. The effect was immediate and catastrophic for the Vorthak Empire. Across the galaxy, swarm formations that had moved with perfect coordination suddenly began to falter. Individual Vorthak, cut off from their command network, started behaving erratically. Lieutenant Wu Jin, monitoring Vorthak communications from his intelligence ship, watched the chaos unfold with professional satisfaction. "Their command frequencies are going silent one by one," he reported to the human high command. "Sector 7 is completely dark. Sector 12 just lost coordination. Wait, now Sector 15 is falling apart too." On the bridge of his flagship, General Hyojin watched the tactical displays update in real time. Red zones marking organized Vorthak resistance were flickering and changing to yellow, indicating confused and scattered forces. "It's working better than we hoped," she told her staff. "The hive mind isn't just damaged, it's fragmenting into isolated pieces. Each swarm group is now operating independently, without central coordination." Admiral Taemin, observing from his Centauri command ship, could hardly believe what he was seeing. In 40 years of war, no one ever thought to attack their infrastructure instead of their armies. We always fought the symptoms, never the disease itself. The psychological impact on the Vorthak was even more devastating than the physical damage. Creatures that had spent their entire existence as part of a vast collective consciousness suddenly found themselves alone in their own minds for the first time. Many simply shut down, unable to function without constant guidance from the hive mind. Lieutenant Bo Ram coordinated follow-up strikes on secondary breeding worlds using intelligence gathered from captured Vorthak navigation computers. Confirmed destruction of breeding facilities in the Altair, Vega, and Centauri sectors, she reported. Estimated reduction of 75% in new Vorthak production. Within a week, the effects rippled across the entire galaxy. Vorthak forces that had terrorized civilizations for decades suddenly became manageable threats. Some swarm groups fled toward the galactic rim, others fought desperate last stands, and many simply drifted aimlessly through space without direction. "The Empire is broken," Commander Da Yun announced during the daily briefing. "Not defeated yet, but broken. They're no longer a unified force." Captain Jun Seo nodded with satisfaction. "Humanity has always understood that the best way to defeat an enemy is to make them defeat themselves. We just gave the Vorthak the tools to destroy their own unity." Colonel Minho stood on the observation deck of his flagship, staring at the most terrifying sight in the known galaxy. The Vorthak homeworld hung before him like a massive, beating heart made of metal and flesh. The entire planet pulsed with bioluminescent veins that stretched from pole to pole, each pulse sending commands to billions of Vorthak scattered across the stars. "It's not really a planet anymore," whispered Dr. Hanyul, who had insisted on joining the final mission despite the certain death that awaited them all. "Our scans show the original rock core is still there, but everything else has been converted into neural tissue. The whole world is basically one giant brain." Captain Yoon Sik, Minho's second-in-command, reviewed the tactical data with growing unease. "Defensive systems are unlike anything we've encountered. Living weapons that grow from the planet's surface, bioships that emerge from orbital cavities, and energy fields that seem to anticipate our every move. The homeworld was protected by concentric rings of defensive structures that stretched millions of kilometers into space. Each ring contained thousands of Vorthak ships, not constructed in factories, but literally grown from the planet's organic mass. As the human fleet approached, these defenses began responding with an intelligence that far surpassed anything they'd faced before. "The Queen Mine knows we're here," reported Lieutenant Sang Woo from the communications station. "It's pulling back Vorthak forces from across the galaxy to defend itself. We're facing everything they have left. Minho nodded grimly. Intelligence reports indicated that the remaining Vorthak forces were indeed converging on their homeworld, abandoning occupied territories to protect their central consciousness. This was exactly what the human strategists had hoped for, even though it meant facing impossible odds. The volunteer pilots who had come for this mission represented the best of humanity's military forces. Each one had lost family, friends, or entire worlds to the Vorthak invasion. They understood that this attack would succeed only through ultimate sacrifice. Remember, our ships are loaded with quantum cascade bombs, Dr. Harnewell explained during the final briefing. When detonated simultaneously at the planet's core, they'll create a chain reaction that will sever every neural connection the Queen Mind has established. But the delivery system requires manual guidance through the planetary crust. Tuan, Ji-hoon, piloting the lead penetration craft, checked his instruments one final time. How deep do we need to go? 12,000 kilometers through living tissue that will fight us every centimeter of the way, Harnewell replied honestly. The planet will try to heal itself around our ships, trap us, dissolve us. We'll have maybe 10 minutes before the organic defenses overwhelm our hulls. The attack began at dawn, ship time. Minho's fleet engaged the outer defensive rings, while smaller, more agile craft slipped through the chaos toward the planet's surface. The Vorthak Queen Mind, possessing intelligence accumulated over millions of years, anticipated many of their tactics and countered with devastating effectiveness. "We're losing ships faster than projected," reported Captain Yunsik, as another squadron disappeared in brilliant explosions. "The planet is learning our attack patterns in real time." "That's why we need to keep changing them," Minho replied, directing his pilots through increasingly desperate maneuvers. "Every ship we lose buys time for the penetration team." Captain Ji-hoon's squadron dove through the planet's atmosphere, their hulls glowing white-hot from friction and enemy fire. The surface below writhed like living flesh, opening massive wounds to swallow the attacking ships. Biodefense systems erupted from the ground, shooting tendrils of organic matter that tried to entangle and crush the human vessels. "Hull breach on Deck 3, Ji-hoon reported calmly as his ship burrowed deeper into the planet's crust. "Organic matter is trying to infiltrate our life support systems, sealing affected sections." Around him, the other volunteer pilots pressed deeper into the nightmare landscape of the planet's interior. The living walls pulsed with alien thoughts, trying to overwhelm their minds with psychic pressure. Several pilots screamed as the Queen Mind attempted to take control of their consciousness. "Remember your training," Minho transmitted to the penetration team. "Focus on the mission, don't let it into your heads." Lieutenant Tae-young's ship suddenly lurched as something massive grabbed it from below. "I'm trapped," he reported. "The planet's trying to digest my ship," detonating early to clear a path for the others. His sacrifice opened a tunnel that allowed the remaining ships to push deeper toward the core. One by one, the volunteer pilots gave their lives to ensure the mission's success, each detonation clearing obstacles for their teammates. "Core depth achieved," Captain Ji-hoon finally announced, his voice weak from fighting the psychic assault. "Arming quantum cascade device. For every world they consumed, for every species they silenced, the simultaneous detonation of 12 quantum bombs at the planet's core created a chain reaction that traveled at light speed through every neural pathway. Across the galaxy, billions of Vorthak suddenly stopped moving as their connection to the guiding intelligence was severed forever. The Queen Mind that had terrorized the galaxy for millennia simply ceased to exist, taking with it the unified purpose that had made the swarm unstoppable. Admiral Hye-jin walked through the rebuilt corridors of the Galactic Council chambers on Centauri Prime, her footsteps echoing in the vast halls that had once hosted the galaxy's most powerful civilizations. 6 months had passed since the destruction of the Vorthak Queen Mind, and the galaxy was slowly healing from wounds that had seemed fatal. The council chamber itself told the story of recovery. Holographic displays showed green zones spreading across star maps that had been blood red just months before. Former Vorthak worlds were being transformed into thriving colonies, their poisoned atmospheres cleaned, and their scarred surfaces replanted with life from dozens of different species. Representatives from 43 different civilizations had gathered for this historic moment. Admiral Taemin sat with the rebuilt Centauri delegation, his people's merchant fleets already resuming trade across formerly occupied systems. War Chief Krastok represented the Draconi clans, who had found new purpose in protecting refugee settlements instead of conquering them. The ethereal being known as Whisper of Stars floated among the assembly, its thoughts touching each delegate, with messages of hope and renewal. Even species that had been bitter enemies for centuries were working together, united by their shared experience of near extinction and salvation. Admiral Hyejin, announced the Council's senior representative, a dignified Zephyrian named Veltaran, by unanimous vote of all member species, we offer humanity permanent leadership of the reformed Galactic Alliance. Your species saved us. All. It is only fitting that you guide our future. The chamber fell silent as every eye turned to the human admiral. This was the moment that countless species throughout history had dreamed of, the chance to rule over a grateful galaxy. The humans possessed the most advanced military technology, the most effective strategies, and the respect of every surviving civilization. Hyejin smiled warmly as she looked around the chamber at faces representing billions of grateful beings. We appreciate the honor, she began, but humanity didn't fight this war to become your rulers. We fought it to preserve the diversity and freedom that make this galaxy beautiful. She activated a holographic display showing the proposed new government structure. Instead of a single ruling species, we propose a democratic council, where every civilization has an equal voice. Humans will serve as advisors and peacekeepers, but decisions affecting the galaxy should be made by all species working together. War Chief Krastok rose from his seat, his massive frame imposing even in the peaceful setting. Admiral, my people have followed strength for 10,000 years. Your species proved its strength beyond question. Why refuse the power you've earned? Because power concentrated in one species' hands is how empires are born, Hyejin replied. And empires eventually become the very thing we just destroyed. Humanity succeeded because we learned from everyone, not because we tried to dominate everyone. Admiral Taemin nodded thoughtfully. Your people could have revealed themselves decades ago and demanded tribute from us. Instead, you watched and waited until we needed help. That wisdom is exactly why you should lead us. That wisdom is exactly why we won't, Hyejin countered gently. True leadership means knowing when to step back and let others grow. Meanwhile, on the former Vortak world of Kepler 438b, Captain Jun Seo supervised the construction of the first human civilian colony outside Earth's solar system. The planet had been completely consumed by Vortak biostructures, but human terraforming technology was slowly restoring its natural beauty. Children from a dozen different species played together in the settlement's central plaza, their laughter echoing across gardens that had been planted with flowers from their various homeworlds. Human families lived next to Centauri merchants, Draconi engineers, and ethereal artists, creating a community that would have been impossible before the war. Look at them, Junseo said to his wife, Dr. Yunhee, as they watched their daughter, teaching a young Draconi how to plant earth roses. 6 months ago, most of these species had never even met. Now they're building a future together. Dr. Yunhee, who had been part of the biological restoration team, pointed to the horizon where construction robots were building new cities designed to accommodate the needs of multiple species. The Vorthak tried to make the galaxy uniform by consuming everything. We're making it diverse by sharing everything. Back on Earth, the revelation of humanity's galactic adventures had transformed the planet's perspective forever. No longer were humans alone in the universe, struggling with petty conflicts and limited resources. They were part of something, vast and wonderful, with responsibilities that stretched across the stars. The quiet watchers from a small blue world had become the galaxy's hope, but more importantly, they had shown that wisdom often comes from the most unexpected places. In a universe where strength was measured by the ability to conquer, humanity had proven that true power lay in the courage to serve others. The galaxy was healing, and at the heart of that healing was a simple truth that humans had always known. The strongest civilizations are built not on dominance, but on friendship, cooperation, and the unwavering belief that everyone deserves a chance to flourish among the stars.